Let's talk about this and lots of other topics with my next guest. Rupert Lowe joins us. He's a Reform UK MP for Great Yarmouth. Good afternoon to you, Rupert.
Hi, Julia. How are you?
Very nice to talk to you. I'd like to actually start just with that issue of the legal aid, government pledging millions more in legal aid to clear the asylum backlog. Love to know what the Reform thought about that.
As your guest said, it seems that every road leads to more riches for the lawyers. And, you know, I think, as I've said in the past, we're enjoying the rule of lawyers, not the rule of law. So do I think it's wise? Do I think it's helpful? No. We're just going to end up with more legal wrangling, and ultimately we're not going to solve the problems. And, you know, I think you wanted to talk about the white paper.
Yeah.
I mean, it just looks like more central planning to me, more of the same. They're not going to the core of the issue, which is too many young people not working, not contributing, too much mental health illness as a result of some of the bad decision-making in COVID. And in the end, what one has to do is change the incentive basis. So what you've got to do is incentivize people to work. And the system has to benefit people who want to work and do well and want to be aspirational. And the problem we've got now is that Rachel Reeves's budget has done everything in its power to try and damage the aspirational middle class, which is so important to any successful society.
Well, and the aspirational working class.
Julia, I mean, I know they had terrible trouble defining what a working class person or what a working person is.
But I'd like to pick you up on something else you said. You talked about, you know, help people who want to work. I think we should care. I think we should help people to get back to work, require people to get back to work, whether they want to or not. I genuinely think this is it's a financial issue and it's a moral issue. I think people have a duty to work if they can. I think they have a moral duty not to themselves, to their families, but also to the wider public. And you know, if you don't want to work, OK, fine, as long as you don't cost me anything. But you will, because you're not paying taxes and you're not contributing to pay your way to help the people who can't work. And we've had calls from people today, you know, someone, you know, had his late wife, very disabled, but, you know, she was able to get a loan so she could get a car so she could continue a job where there was enough physical activity that she could manage, but not too much. Now, that's the sort of help I think we all want to be giving people, and yet we've got these sickness benefits, far more than the disability benefits, the sickness benefits, where people we know are just swinging the lead. We have far more people in this country who are, since the pandemic and lockdowns, who are claiming sickness benefits through stress and anxiety, and depression and the like, than any other Western nation. And the explanation for that can only be, surely, they're able to claim those benefits.
In the end, I always call it the 5 golden rules of business, which are what's in it for me. And at the end of the day, if you make it not worth people's while to go to work, you disincentivize them to go to work.
Yeah.
And, you know, I look at these suggested white paper, you know, youth guarantee, rebrand job centres, long-term sickness involving the NHS, which is a flawed organisation in the first place. Apprenticeships, well, most apprenticeships are done by the private sector anyway. Yep. And then we've got, I gather, Charlie Mayfield, who, you know, was part of the sort of succession plan, which brought Sharon White into John Lewis. Yeah. So, I mean, what you've got is you've got the same sort of statist agenda, which helps foster this dependency culture, which is actually eating away at us like a cancer. So I think what we've got to do is try and get rid of the sort of incentive not to work, encourage people to work. And I think there are a lot of people who would like to work. I do think it's very difficult for young people to get jobs, so they do need as much help as they possibly can. The last thing we want, though, is this sort of further roster of what I call central planning folly, which will just increase the power of the state.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. But at the same time also, this bizarre thing where, you know, job centres for everybody, they're going to rebrand, they're going to spend a load of money on a new logo, new signage and some new headed note paper.
Rebrand, Julia. Rebrand's always the one.
Well, exactly. It doesn't make any difference. But also, crucially, at the same time as this, we've just had a budget which put up the cost of hiring people, particularly young people. Minimum wage went up. Cost of national insurance on the employer side has gone up, lots of extra costs, and a lot of those industries, hospitality, retail, where you can get in on an entry-level job, working on the fries at McDonald's or stacking shelves in a supermarket, and you can prove yourself. Turn up every day, do the job with the right attitude, work hard, and you can prove yourself and work upwards and do really well. But those entry-level jobs, they're going to be fewer and far between, aren't they?
Yeah, you're going to love this one. I mean, it's good to see finally that some of the business, bodies are cogging themselves up and starting to complain about the cost to businesses, because as you quite rightly say, and in my businesses, you've got a situation where next year we're going to be cutting back on the number of staff. We're not going to be paying pay increases.
Yep.
There's going to be everything we possibly can do to cut out the cost of employees, which is wrong. A tax on jobs is just wrong. But I thought you'd enjoy this one. I had a meeting with a government minister about the farmers, where I said I wanted to tell them that they've got it so badly wrong. It's going to be their equivalent of the poll tax riots during Maggie Thatcher's era. And I hope it just escalates until they back down.
I don't see them backing down at all.
He looked me in the eye and he said, very often, the state is more efficient than the private sector. That is as true as I sit here.
God.
I ended the meeting on that note, on the basis that I was wasting my time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, totally. What do you make of this petition? Is it 2.6 million signatures, I think, now, calling for a general election? We spoke to the pub landlord who brought it, who put it online last Thursday. Michael Caine signed it. Elon Musk has forwarded it. Now, the usual thing, people go, oh, not all these signatures are from Britain. No, of course they won't all be. But that's the same for any petition that is online. But the reality is, an awful lot of people feel that they have been sold apart by Labour, and the publican who wrote this said, look, they've broken promises that they made ahead of the election. We should have another general election. What do you say to that?
Steve Reed actually categorically stated on a number of occasions before the election that there would be no change to agricultural property relief, quote unquote. And as you know, they call them, their manifestos. We didn't call it a manifesto. We called it a contract with the people, because if we put a contract together, we'd expect to honour it. Yeah. But I know you and I know that these manifestos aren't worth the paper they're written on. They're reflective of what I call tribal politics, which is serving the parties, not the nation. And I just hope that Britain wakes up and realises that ultimately they've got to appoint somebody, even if they're rough around the edges and they are real people trying to make a change. They've got to appoint somebody. They've got to appoint somebody from outside the existing political establishment if they want to change the way we're governed.
Well, we should see.
I honestly tell you, unless we release the power of our wonderful individuals within this country, I have to tell you, the more I dig, the more questions I ask, the more dodgy answers I get, the more I drill down. I think we could be running a Ponzi scheme as a country. And
I think you may well be right. I have to say, I have been pleasantly surprised by how much just 5 Reform UK MPs, how much sort of trouble you can cause a government with some of the questions, not just at PMQs, but the written ministerial questions, getting answers and holding the government to account. I'm all in favour of this. Can I ask you just finally just about one breaking news story in the last...
PMQ tomorrow, Julie. I got another PMQ
Excellent, well, that'll be fun. Can I just get you just breaking news in the last half hour or so, 20 minutes or so. Russia has expelled a British diplomat amid accusations of espionage, according to reports coming out of the TASS news agency in Russia. But the British ambassador to Russia has just been summoned over the expulsion of one of London's diplomats. And TASS cites the Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman as confirming that Nigel Casey, who has served as the UK's ambassador in Moscow since last year, has been summoned to the Kremlin. What do you think there's behind this, and what do you think will come of this? Is there anything we should worry about?
I don't know, Julia. I've been busy, on reform politics this morning, but it's so depressing that Europe can't get itself organised so that we actually cooperate and we work together. And I know that's very difficult given the situation in Ukraine. But it's to watch all this needless killing going on of both Russian and Ukrainian young men, and indeed probably women. It's just such a terrible waste of life. And there must be a solution to this somehow.
Yes, and Russia withdraws to its own borders. There you
Hopefully,
go.
Donald Trump and his new administration, once they take power, will be able to bring some common sense to it all.
All right. Thank you very much, Rupert Lowe, there, a former UK MP for Great Yarmouth.